Garret, so wonderful to have the opportunity to talk to you today because not only did I love this movie, and thank you for the 3 boxes of Kleenex I needed beside me watching it, but it made me go back and watch the interviews that I did with Anton. I think I interviewed him about 6 times in my life.
Oh, really?
I was very
Amazing.
lucky to get him from little to almost just about a year before he passed. And oh my gosh, and I remember meeting him thinking what a special guy he was and what a great actor he was and just so compassionate and everything. I got that just from the 15 minutes I get to spend with somebody, whatever, right? And then I'm watching
Yeah.
this movie and I go, wow, what an amazing kid he was. Did
Oh,
you know him before you even decided to dive into this?
not at all.
Wow.
I knew him from his work, but that's about it. So I always tell people, Anton found me to tell his story. I didn't go out seeking to tell his story. I'm really close friends with a filmmaker named Drake Doremus who made Like Crazy with
Yes.
Anton.
Yeah.
And so when Anton's parents were looking for a director to possibly hand off their archive and tell Anton's story in a documentary form, they went to Drake because he was very close with their son and they had a special relationship. But Drake really convinced them that he wasn't the right person to tell the story, that they really needed to find an objective storyteller. He knew their son too close. And
Right.
knowing Anton and how honest and what a raw and true person he was, he would agree with that, that you need an objective storyteller. So he suggested me, who I'm an editor. I've cut many documentaries and I've worked with Drake as an editor too, on the editor side of things. So he was like, Garret, why don't you make this film as a director and I'll produce it? And I was still hesitant, not because I didn't want the opportunity, but I just didn't know if there was a feature story to be told there. I was like, I know he passed away, I know he acted in films, but I just
even aside from that though, I mean, just
yeah.
It's amazing to me how many movies, how many things that he did in his short life. Like aside from, I mean, and anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, well that's the thing. And then I went and sat with his parents one afternoon and just started learning all about him and dug through all their collection of all his material. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not only a story that can be told, it's a story that needs to be told. Yeah. And I was hooked from the beginning. And I really, I was learning about Anton as I was making this film, and I wanted that feeling I was getting to come across to an audience watching the film.
Yeah.
And learning about him for the first time. And that was kind of my goal in all of it.
Well, absolutely. It's such a labor of love, like you can tell just from watching it. And what just shocked me is I always commend documentarians because you have so much stuff to go through. How do you weed it out? How do you choose? And then you've got all this stuff from his family, like the cards that he wrote his mother, the films that they shot when he was just from a baby growing up, like, oh my gosh, I don't even think I could find all the stuff that I shot of my kids growing up. We did it, but I would never, if somebody came to me and said, I want to make a documentary of your kid, I'd be like, okay, good luck. How did you even weed through all that stuff?
Yeah, well, I think the editor in me is helpful when it comes to that part of it. It's something I've done my whole career, but it's just being given all this material, of someone's life and given his personal writings also, it feels very invasive also as an outsider going through it, reading his personal writings that were never meant to be, seen by me, let alone used in a movie. But it's what needed. I wanted to tell the movie from his point of view. That was really important for me. This is Anton's story to tell. It's not my story to tell. I'm just there to help out. And that was really important to me. So that's why I kind of latched on to this device of using his personal writings to really take me through his life, and hone that in on his relationship with his mom, because that really stood out to me. It's something that I can relate to, and I think and I think it's something that audiences can relate to. If you have any relationship with a loved one, I think as a filmmaker telling these types of stories, you need to find those themes that people can relate to, especially when it's a movie about a famous person. I don't want to just be about how great this person was. And these people need to relate to the subject matter, or they're just not going to care as much.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was really important to me. So that's why I kind of used this device to take me through his life. And that was more important to me than the tons of interviews of famous people I got talking about Anton, which they were all important in their own right, but that his words were the most important thing to me in telling the story.
Oh, for sure. And then the access, to his parents, and
Yeah,
it's always hard for, listen, losing a child, my God, and
right.
to such a fluke accident, and it's
Yeah,
it's devastating beyond belief. But his mother, like like he loved both his parents. Don't get me wrong, but the love he had for his mom,
yeah.
just
Just as,
and being a mom and having two sons, like holy mackerel, boy, did that ever get to me, you know?
yeah. Well, and that was the intention there. And it got to me just that first afternoon I sat down with her. I I started to recognize this relationship that comes across in the movie. It's one I've never, yes, we all love our parents, we all have relationships with our kids, but there was something so special about
Yeah,
theirs. And, I think part of it comes from them giving up their whole life to give him a better one. There's so many
yeah.
aspects to it where I think built this special bond between the two of them. And, it's just something that was really important to me in telling this story. And like I said, it takes me through the story. He was
Hmm.
writing letters about his mom from the beginning all the way up to the end, and it was kind of the perfect tool to take me from the beginning to the end of his life. And it's also like I always tell people, this is a movie about life and not a movie about a death. And
Yeah, yeah.
death is part of the story, but for the most part, it's about living a life to its fullest, which I found so fascinating.
Oh,
Nothing got in his way,
well, especially
So
for the fact that he had cystic fibrosis, you would never know
yeah,
that. You would never know
no one,
that.
no one
I,
knew that.
yeah, I think when I interviewed him, I don't even think I ever knew that. And and then you
No.
see from his work ethic, not just
Mhm.
how much he did, but he never missed a day of work. Like just incredible human being. And what is also fascinating too is that nobody ever had a bad word to say about this guy. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like
It's crazy, and that's what I found so interesting when I started going into these interviews, especially with his coworkers. In movies like this, they can feel very kind of cookie cutter. He was
yeah,
great, he was great, he was great, but they were so unguarded and so raw. These interviews I had with people, and I didn't quite notice it when I was doing the actual interview, but when I go back to the edit bay and rewatch the interviews, and I see his friends tell stories, I would just watch their eyes. You could see
yeah.
them remembering their moments they had with this incredible human being, and it was just so special. It just added so much to the storytelling of his life. And it's not that they didn't have anything bad to say. It's not that they didn't want to say bad things
Yeah,
about him. They
yeah.
just didn't have
They
anything
didn't
bad.
have
And that's the
anything.
thing. No,
Yeah, yeah,
trust me, I try. I mean, and it's really important to show both sides of a coin. A
yeah.
person's life, warts and all. And he had dark, interests. I
Well, we
guess.
see that. We see that. And I don't want to give any of that away because it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Right.
But I was going to point that out because even with those, like I say, I'm watching it from a mom's point of view too, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cringing a little bit, but it didn't matter. He's exploring. He's a kid. He's not doing anything to danger anybody or anything like that.
No.
He was a
No.
curious soul, and I applaud that. Really,
Yeah.
like, just unreal.
Yeah. It was all about exploring. He never said, like, he was always needing to see the next thing and just digging in and discovering and figuring things out. He was that type of person, and it was all of curiosities. He was fascinated by people, and
Yeah.
and learning things and art and just everything.
What do you learn about yourself after making a film about a person who's such a good guy,
I mean, you said you have two sons. I have two young sons also. I would come home every night and look at my kids, be like, "Why don't you treat me the way Anton treats his mom and dad? What am I doing wrong here?" No, but I think it's like, again, it's to me, it's just like, just constantly push yourself. Don't settle. Constantly explore, and keep creating. Don't be scared to fail. Like we talked about, Anton did so many projects. Most of them no one's ever seen or heard of.
Yeah.
But he had to keep pushing himself. And I think the big projects and the small projects, he treated both equally.
Yeah.
It wasn't a one for them, one for me type of thing with him. He just loved the art form of not just filmmaking, but of music, of photography, of
Everything. What a talent. Like
art.
unbelievable. Was there, I know you did get a lot of celebrity, a lot of actors that worked with him was there anybody that you tried to get that was maybe difficult to hook,
No,
like Tom, no,
nothing
no,
was.
I don't think you got Tom
Yeah,
Hiddleston or,
yeah, and then some
yeah,
people. There's a point. The hardest part for me was I couldn't people I had to cut out of the movie just because so many people wanted to talk about it.
I'm sure.
The hard. I had I, Felicity Jones. Not that she didn't want to participate, but it's just too hard for her.
Yeah,
Some people it's still difficult. It's still raw what happened because it's still only been a couple years after he passed when we
I
started
know.
making
Yeah.
this. So, but for most people, it was an instant yes to participate, especially having his parents part of this
On
project
board.
on my side
Yeah.
really helped on board. Having J.J. Abrams on board helped with all the Star Trek people. I mean,
Yeah.
in that Star Trek group, they were like a family.
Oh, you could get that. You
They
get that from watching this movie for
yeah,
sure. I obviously, that was one of the films I interviewed him for and interviewed the cast. And, and when you work on certain films, yeah, you can become a tight knit family. A Star Trek, I could get that, because
yeah,
they want to do that justice. That's not a franchise you want to screw up by any means.
absolutely.
And for him to have played Chekhov and to get the approval of getting, I mean, what more can an actor ask for, really, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then I gotta say again, like that whole cast, Zoe and Chris and Zach and Simon, they were all so helpful in getting this movie out in the world and
Yeah.
sharing, with all their fans that this movie exists. Because it's a small little documentary in the end still. But they wanted everyone to learn about their friend also, as much as I
Yeah.
wanted to learn about Anton, as much as his parents wanted to learn people about
Well,
their son.
yeah, it really is fantastic. And I thank you for it because I think a lot of people, I hope everybody watches it, just even if people don't know who he is, just to get a sense of what a beautiful person he was. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Barry. Thanks for spreading the word. I
Of
appreciate it.
course, of
All
course.
right.
Have a good
Take
night
care.
and
You
go
too.
hug your sons, okay?
I will. You too. All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.